So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And this is a new endeavor for us as we look to listen to maybe some voicemails that you guys have sent in. I'm going to be really honest. I don't know how this is going to go, but it's a new concept. It's something I've wanted to do. Maybe get you guys in to talk on the podcast, and obviously, you know, sharing stream links and stuff like that can get very, very messy and stuff. So we're trying to settle maybe on something that we can use to kind of get you guys to essentially try and create some more interaction, more voice interaction, you know, and more conversation, I suppose, on the podcast. Because while I absolutely love your comments, and please keep on sending them in, specifically on things like the team sheet tantrum, and we do go out of our way to try and read as many of them as we possibly can. Sometimes having that little bit of context with a question, or maybe somebody getting back to us with, you know, with an explanation of why they're asking a certain question, or if we've even answered the question that they've asked, can be really good. So over the coming weeks and months, we're going to try and build upon this and see if we can make it into something cool. But today we're going to have a little go, and there's been some really good voicemails that have come through from you guys, and we're going to take a listen to a few of them today. I did plan on putting this up on the screen so we could see who sent in the voicemails and everything like that, but I'm just a small bit conscious with regards to people's personal information. There's some email addresses that are visible, so if you are sending in a voicemail, maybe leave out the email address. It is optional to put in there. I can't remove the functionality for you to put in your email address. I'm just conscious of sharing into somebody's email address on the screen. So with that in mind, I'm not going to share up what people's the people who've sent these in, because of some personal information that's in there. And in future, if you guys are sending in a voicemail, please just fill in the name part, and you can leave out the email address if you like, because obviously I don't want to share anybody's personal email address for obvious reasons. So let's take a little look at it. As I said, this could go any which way, and we're going to start off with the very first podcast, and I hope to God you guys can hear it. So here it goes.
Do you think we as Aston Villa fans just overrate the squad massively? Because I take a look at our squad from basically New Year's Day 2021, and it's just been massively disappointing. But if I look player for player at a squad like Newcastle or something, I don't see why we should be so poor compared to last season and like this season. Am I just overrating our playing squads?
Okay, the audio on that one was a small little bit distorted. Hope you guys could hear it at home. But basically the premise of the question, if I'm not mistaken, was, do we overrate our squad? And I'm going to say 100% yes, and I am a massive culprit for overrating our squad. And the reason being is because number one, it's a small bit more fun sometimes to think that you've got something better than you have. And look, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say sometimes I live in a very, very optimistic land. I live in a land whereby I try my best to wash the negativity off on a week-to-week basis, a day-to-day basis. I try my best to do that, because, you know, it's I follow Aston Villa because I love them. I follow Aston Villa because it's a massive hobby, and I follow Aston Villa because I find that there's an identity with this team, not the team itself on the field, but the club and the you know what they embody, and some of the players that have gone before them, and obviously Paul McGrath and things like that. And I just find that they really speak to me. So for me, yes, there's a realism that whereby I'm fully okay with saying that I overrate some of the players, and I do think we do as a fan base. But then again, I think sometimes as well, in the event of a loss that we've just had, I think that I fell down the trap as well of underrating, or being probably more doom and gloom than I normally would be. Because literally the phrase is any given Sunday for NFL teams, but any given day that you go out in the field, you could have an absolute stinker. and the context behind a lot of the things that happened at the weekend is paramount. And I'm not going to relitigate the whole weekend, and I'm going to go back to the actual question that you asked there with regards to our squad. And I think that we overrate. I think that we can kind of overrate some of the players for sure, but. And I think what happens is you kind of see that when we go to look to sell on our players, that maybe the market isn't there for them. Now, I think that is synonymous of a lot of teams don't put in the work into buying players that they should do. That we do have some really good players that work in certain systems, but because of the fast-paced nature of a football manager, they don't want to put in the work to see that, yes, this guy can fit into this system or that system, and I hope to have this system implemented in the next 3-4 months, and then at that time this guy will be getting good. They need to have instant results. Like, we have a manager, and I'm sure a lot of these questions are going to revolve around Steven Gerrard and management and stuff like that as we go through. Some of these I haven't listened to, but some managers have that very short term and short-sighted kind of mindset, because you could get the boot after 9 months. You could. And I think that from that point of view, we could say us as fans maybe overrate somebody like a Sanson. We maybe overrate somebody like a Bertrand Traore. But then again, when you look on the flip side, that they have achieved good things and high profile things, and they've won, maybe not won stuff in their cases, but they've won the hearts, and they've won kind of glaring glances from a lot of other teams previously. So it's a difficult question to answer based on where we are at this moment in time, and our squad is better than 14th position. It really is. Like, when you look at some of the players we have there, like the internationals that we've injected into the squad is better than 14th position. Like, we've arguably one of the, like, he's definitely one of the top. I'm going to be conservative and say one of the top 10 goalkeepers in the world in Emi Martinez. We've got a pretty decent backline. I think if we were to put all of our defensive players, like, if you were to put Mings up for sale in the morning, he'll have a suitor. You put Diego Carlos up for sale in the morning, he'll have a suitor. Matty Cash and Luca Dean, yeah, for sure. I think that they get sold at the drop of a hat if you put them up for sale. And then when you go into midfield, McGinn is gone. I actually maintain if you were to put McGinn on the market in the morning for 40 million, I think he'd be a Liverpool player by the end of next week. Just with what's going on at their club at the moment, and they're looking for that person who can come in and be molded maybe like a Jordan Henderson, and I think McGinn potentially could do that. And I know people are probably going to laugh and go, he can't keep hold of the ball, but once again, when you've got all these other players in a different system around you, you could see a completely different John McGinn. So I think he's played in 4 different systems in the 4 years he's been with the club, and I think that's really hindered him within the Premier League specifically. I think that's hindered him as well, but that's for a different conversation. So yes, to answer your question, I do think we overrate the players, but I think that there's also context behind it, that at times we probably underrate them as well. And I think the proof is really in the pudding, that you can really stand over it and say, well, context is king as well for a lot of things, but there are people kind of queuing up to buy the likes of El Ghazi, to buy the likes of Bertrand Traore, but then again, the fans don't think very highly of them anyway at the moment. So it's kind of a catch-22 question. I hope I answered it and wasn't too fence city there. I tried to answer it as best I could. So thanks a million for that. Let's go on to our next voicemail.
Fellow villains, just would like everyone to take a deep breath. It's sort of crazy how Villa fans and most Premier League football fans just panic for either the best team in the world or the worst team in the world. Just would like, just for maybe a couple months, to enjoy the Premier League season without having to read about how Gerrard's a fraud and how these players are terrible. Or conversely, when we beat Everton 3-0, how we're the best team in the Premier League and we're going to make a European push. How about we just enjoy the ride and relax? But maybe that makes me a little bit crazy. Thanks. Up the Villa.
I don't think that makes you a little bit crazy at all. I think I think in society itself at the minute, and I think in nearly every walk of life, we're very much swing left, swing right. And I don't mean that in a political sense before anyone gets at me. I'm just talking about that there's a center point in almost every discussion that you have. And at some stages, based on emotion and feeling, everything swings one way or it swings another way. And look, that's all the part of being a fan. I suppose really that you do have those swings, you have those emotions. Like fan is short for fanatic, and we know what fanatical is. Fanatical is like, you know, that you've got this blind passion for something. So you know, I agree with you. I found myself getting like, and I'm not going to temper my emotions after losses like that because that was a bad loss. And also, I'm not going to temper my emotions after we go out. Maybe like I'll never forget feeling so happy after Courtney House scored that header against Manchester United last season and we won. And I went, I don't care. I'm just going to be able to shout it from the rooftops that this feels like we're after winning 10 games in a row because it was a monkey off our back. And that's what the great emotion is. But I do agree with you, Christopher. I do agree that we do have a situation where sometimes, you know, sitting back, taking note. And as I say, it's going to be my catchphrase is context is king for a lot of things. Like I probably got too far out over my skis with regards to the Tyrone Mings stuff. You look at the full interview and the full context. And even in the interview, he said, Stephen Gerrard said that he was injured in that interview where he said he's to look me in the eye and when he's fit he'll tell me. He actually said he was injured directly after that, and that wasn't reported. And I suppose that's a fallacy of us, really, that maybe you got to sit in us, and I mean us is in the For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. When we're talking about it, I'm not going to talk about anybody else, but I think I think like when we look at that in the context of it, if I had that full context, I probably would have had a bit more of a measured take on it. But at the time, I was apoplectic. Because I genuinely felt that Konsa was the wrong decision straight away from the team sheet. And I felt like I was proved correctly based on what I saw in the game and the 2 goals that we conceded. So I think you are right there, Christopher. I think that you're right that that sometimes maybe we need this. It's good to take a bit of a reset and fall back into the center again and not get too far one way or too far the other way. And maybe sometimes just go, right, you got to wash that one off. And hopefully we're going to enjoy Everton at the weekend. And I do think we're going to enjoy Everton. My Aston Villa Lions club, you might be able to see it there in the background. I'm just going to move. You see there my pennant, official Lions club. We have an official Lions club here in Connacht in Galway, in County Galway in Ireland. And we're meeting up for the first time. We were forged during the COVID times, and I'm really looking forward to that for the Everton game at the weekend. We're going to meet up, going to watch it in a pub. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a 12:30 kickoff, and hopefully I'm going to make some great new friends and friends through the Villa, and that's really what it's about at the end of the day. So we're right to get hot under the collar about certain things. We're right to get elated over other things. But I suppose if we start doing that every single week, then we won't actually know where the middle point is. And I think that is a very, very good observation as well, Christopher. So thank you very much for that. Next one here is...
I think if Villa really are an aspirational club, and if we want to be hitting the top half of the Premier League, then clearly the setup we currently have isn't going to get that. I think that I felt like Dean Smith was sacked prematurely. I think I'm not alone in that. And I would much sooner have somebody come into the club who's shared a bit more of a modern outlook on what football is. You know, it seems as if Steven Gerrard is a symbol of a past era that I hoped we'd moved on from at this point. You know, there's a lot of mentions of an air of toxicity around Steven Gerrard, and that couldn't be further from where it was at with Dean Smith. I miss Dino, man. Bring back Dino. Got nothing left to say except for up the Villa.
Okay, so there's a couple of things in that, I suppose, really, that and I'm not going to sit here and rewrite the history of this podcast. We were very pro Dean Smith podcast as well, and I was for a split second definitely skeptical of the Steven Gerrard piece, and then as I got to know more about his backroom team and stuff, I began to very much warm to him and warm to him coming into the club. And let's be honest, like up to 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were doing podcasts here saying that he's finally become manager of this club, and he needed to get the clause out, and he needed, like, for the Carney Chukwuemeka situation, he handled that really well. And now we're at a situation whereby we want to try, like, not us, but like there's some chat that we want to, like, bin him because of the way he handled Tyrone Mings. And I think it goes back to the last voicemail that we had there, that sometimes you get too far left and too far right. And for the person who called in here, I'm not saying that you did here. I'm just talking about this as a greater as a greater macrocosm as opposed to microcosm of the way that I suppose the feeling that's around the club at the moment. With regards to Dean Smith, look, come here, Uncle Dino. Like, really, he's a Villa fan. He knew what it meant to the club. He was a really good guy, and to be honest with you, he was doing as well, if not better, than with players that arguably aren't as good as the players that we have now. Like, we have better players than Diego Carlos. Coutinho is a better player. Maybe he's not doing it for Aston Villa at the moment. Leon Bailey's finally getting into his. It looks like he's getting into his pomp, and we have Boubacar Kamara as well. So I think there's merit in what you say, but look, we can't turn back the hands of time. We can't go back. Well, we could go back and get Dean Smith again, but we're not going to. I'm not going to specifically talk on anything to do with the toxicity that is rumored to be around the club, just because I don't want to fuel rumors, because I don't know, and all I can say is I will talk about, obviously, the comments made on Mings. I will talk about maybe the Morgan Sanson piece, but we'll say it as we see it there. I'm not going to speculate, I don't think, with regards to the toxicity. And I know that you weren't speculating, you weren't looking for me to do that. So this isn't a comment on you, it's just the points that you bring up. I will discuss them in a grander scheme, in a more wholesome scheme, with regards to encapsulating, I suppose, what I see on Twitter and what the fan base feels, not just the caller feels here. So please don't think that I'm having pot shots at you with regards to this. I certainly am not. But I won't. I'm reluctant to discuss the toxicity at the minute. And the reason being, as I say, is because I want to discuss it with regards to evidence. And when it becomes evidentiary like that, then we'll discuss it more. Because my opinion at the moment is that I think that, like, everybody's grown up inside in that dressing room. We have the same players. Some of the same players are underperforming that underperformed under Dean Smith. They're underperforming now for Steven Gerrard, and they're in crucial and critical positions. But I don't think that they're being helped either by the system. So from that point of view, I think you're right. That the system doesn't seem to have many tweaks to it, and it hasn't had it at the moment, and that's something that we as fans want to see. And I know we're doing our team sheet tantrum on Saturday, that when we discuss when we're talking about it, I'm gone to the stage where I don't really care about personnel now at the moment. We have a good enough squad that we should be able to put out 11 players from 3 or 4 or 5 different combinations of players, and we should be able to play to a system that opens up people through the middle. And if we can't, and if we continue to go to the crossing methodologies, like, then we're no better than Burnley of last year or the year before, and it's very difficult for a team to do that when you're not set up that way. And we're not set up that way to go crossing the whole time, yet we always only end up in crossing situations, and the crosses don't go anywhere, as we saw the last day. But not going to relitigate that game again. Thank you very much for the voicemail. Really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have sent in voicemails. Continue to send them in as well, as I say, until we get something a bit more concrete with regards, maybe some sort of, I don't know if we can even do a phone-in show. I don't know what the story is, but these are really good, and they're really good, well-formed questions. And they allow me to speak about maybe greater issues that, not issues, but greater kind of, what's the word I'm trying to say? Talking points, I suppose, within the fan base as well. So thanks very much, everybody, for these. We have another one here. And by the way, I just wanted to let everybody know the voicemails are capped at 90 seconds. So if some of them end abruptly, that's why. The reason I say that is the next one is a 90-second one.
Hi, Paddy. Well, the result of the weekend wasn't very good, was it? Unfortunately, we didn't get off to a good start. However, I do think there's some slight mitigating circumstances behind the really good Bournemouth performance. One, firstly, was okay. Their early goal, there was a lot of bad defending, but it was a fair degree of luck as well, and it just set the tone for the match where they were going to settle in with their low block, with their big defenders guarding their penalty area. Unfortunately, I don't think we just maybe had the right personnel on the pitch at the time just to be able to manage that. We're playing a high possession game. I would like to see the likes of Dougie, Buendia, these guys who can, pick a really nice pass, find a striker or a Coutinho or someone just in the right spot. So for me, I think we've got to let Neil Critchley now do some troubleshooting. He's got the opportunity now to look at some of the problems that we experienced last season and it's continued this season. So I think we just have to give things time, but we'll get better off the Villa.
You know what? I agree with a lot of that. I agree with a lot that's in there. I like that. It's going to be difficult for a lot of teams to break down a low block like that of 7-8 men behind the ball, and it was like literally they were playing in the car park behind the goals. Like they were that far back. They just parked themselves in their box and I said, right, so I'll try and break us down with crosses because. And look, I keep on saying, I keep on falling back into that kind of bitchy moany mode about the game, but I think what you say there is right. Up to a point, I think the personnel piece. I think that we had adequate personnel that should have been able to break down that team. I just don't think that we knew how to play through the middle, and I think that when we set up with Bailey wide right and we set up with Coutinho wide left, we had nothing through the middle. And it looked like we were terrified that we were going to get caught in a counter-attack because I know Solanke in the first half, after they scored the first goal, they did have a bit of a counter-attack and Solanke had a shot that Martinez had to save. Now, the biggest thing, as I say, is that when we're playing those two guys wide, and we were playing them wide in the first half, our wing-backs were bombing on and stealing their space. Danny Ings was coming out to the wings, into the channels to steal their space. And when you talk about Neil Critchley, I hope he's seen that. I hope he's seen the concentration of our players in similar spots on the field is detrimental to how we're going to get players like Buendia. Like even if we get Buendia into the team, we're still going to need to find him space, and we can't find him space if we're dragging all the players into one, like our players and their players, into one area in the field. We're going to need someone to stay central. We're going to need to have our fullbacks stay back there, like the inverted tens that Steven Gerrard wants to play. That's the piece I think needs to be like either they're inverted or they're playing out in the wing. And since he's come in, they've been playing out in the wing and they've been caught under the feet of Luca Dean. And they're basically literally there to receive a pass from a Douglas Luiz or a Kamara and basically kind of shuffle it out further out to the wing for Luca Dean or Matty Cash across the ball. And that's a complete another waste of these type of players. So there have been some games where it has clicked and there have been some that haven't. Now, you mentioned about Neil Critchley, and I think that's a very important point that Neil Critchley now does have an opportunity. I love the fact that I love the phrase you use troubleshooting there because I am a tech guy, and I love the fact that you use the word troubleshooting because I think that's what's needed to be done here. A lot of people have said you need to be able to deal with the players that you have and play with the players that you have, and we can't just keep on buying in players to get us out of a situation. And yeah, Neil Critchley has come in, and that's going to be something he's going to need to do. And at the time, we didn't make much of it, but him not being down in Australia and seeing those idiosyncrasies, although while I know he had all the data and he was probably there in Zoom calls or Teams calls or whatever there, it's a lot easier, or it should be a lot easier to implement that once you are on the training field with them day in, day out. And I think that that's my hope. My hope is that we will see, even though it is a short enough turnaround, we will see that there will be some small changes there. And I just think we have to abandon. Either we have to trust our wing players to be those wing players, or we have to abandon abandon the full backs going forward, or we have to pull those wing players right into the center, those Coutinhos and Buendia and Leon Bailey, pull them right into the center and give like. I think either way, you're just going to have to curtail the fullbacks going so far forward. It causes massive consternation with our two defenders. It creates so much space. and then our midfield are left high and dry, and our midfield can't be in any way creative. And then it allows somebody like a Jefferson Lerma, or even when we're playing against Everton at the weekend, it will allow two of their midfielders to just stand inside in the middle, and our midfielders won't be able to outmuscle them because they'll be too busy filing out into the wings to cover for our wing backs. Defenders defend at this moment in time, and until we start to get a bit more coherency within results, within defensive strategy and defensive shape, that will allow us then to attack a bit more through the middle, or allow us to go wide through our flair players. But at the moment, our flair players are just being water carriers and handing them out to the fullbacks who are crossing the ball in. And to me, it's just it's a poor use of Bundia or Coutinho or Leon Bailey at this moment in time. Well, based on last week's performance, so they need to get them into the game more, and we need to start attacking more through the middle. And I'm not going to sit here and know how we're going to do that, but it's something that the club will need to figure out. We have 3 more.
I don't quite know where we go from here, because I think it's, for me, a matter of time before Steven Gerrard leaves the club. I think pretty much everything he does is poor. And I think he's getting off a bit lightly with the media. His team setup is poor. Managing players is poor. His tactics are poor. His formation is poor. As soon as that original formation got found out, it has really been downhill, and doesn't seem to be having anything else. And there's also really, really good players. I think that's the one thing that that we can see from Gerrard is he's got pulling power. But it doesn't seem to have pulling power to get the players to do what he wants on the pitch. And if he's not the one who's coaching the players, and what else can he do? I don't really see. He's putting the new coaching team in. It's not got any better. I don't see it getting any better. And this is as bad as I've seen it since the end of the Gerrard era about that performance. It was just full of nothing. And what Gerrard had to work with and what Gerrard's got to work with, he's had a perfect pre-season where he's only had to strengthen. Hasn't lost any players.
And the voicemail just cut out there because we got to 90 seconds. I'm going to start at the very end there, and I think it's very fair to say that he's had a pretty perfect off season from the point of view of personnel, with regards to he hasn't lost anybody of note, and he's been able to strengthen with 1 or 2 or 3 players. So from that point of view, he can't have any qualms. You mentioned as well about his pulling power off the field. I think that is evident, and I think that is something. I'm still on the fence about the man management side of things, because when you see, I'll always go back to, and I know there's about 10 other times that people could point and say you should not have said this in the media, and I think that's 100% the thing. I think you criticize in private, you praise in public, and that's just like that's management 101 really. But I think the criticism in public is what's being his downfall, is what's kind of souring people pretty quickly on certain situations, obviously, like the just ones that we've seen previously. But what was I going to say? Oh yes, the point thing I was going to say there was, I always go back to the Boubacar Kamara piece and how happy he was, how he spoke to Boubacar, and then how he went out and he spoke to his father and stuff like that. And it seems like that he can be very, very personable from that point of view. I know firsthand that he was in somebody's sitting room or kitchen speaking to them and their family. A player obviously didn't join Aston Villa, went on and joined another club. But little things like that, that he can be quite personable when needed, when the time is right. But then again, as I say, if these sound bites weren't coming out in the media, I think that the people would have a lot different opinion on his man management style. Like, I think managers are well within their rights to tell players, listen, you're not going to be around the club anymore. Like he's done with Freddie Guilbert, he's done with Bertrand Traore and those. We're going to seek moves, and I think that that's courageous, and I think that you can kind of be farting around the bush a small little bit and trying to mollycoddle people. But like from a professional point of view, it's important to let players know that and say, listen, look, we're going to be looking for a move for you. If there's anything that pops up on your end, we're going to speak to your agent. We're going to see if he can maybe manufacture a move for you, but we're also going to try and manufacture a move as well. We're going to be really honest with you, because careers are short, and to have somebody sitting on the shelf, especially if they're 28, 29 years of age, for 2 years, that makes them, and they just run down their contract. That makes them 31. And players want to play. So I think from that point of view, it can actually be seen as good man management. And I don't really buy into the bomb squad piece. I don't buy into that as being wholly a negative. Yes, it can be a negative in some instances, but in a lot of instances, it can be a positive, because it's just professional to let players know where they stand. I think the big point that I wanted to mention with you there is, yes, the media did give him an easy ride. They gave him a very easy ride up until pretty much last Saturday. And it's been question after question after question after question after question for the last 4 days. We've had segments upon segments in Irish media here about what's the story with Aston Villa. Things don't seem all rosy in the garden. And I know they don't know anything more than what we see online and stuff like that, but it's a talking point. And it's a talking point because some of the comments that have been made by Steven Gerrard, and I think that that's something that needs to change pretty quickly. I know, saying this, I know my co-host Paddy will give out about bland press conferences and bland post-match interviews and stuff like that. And maybe he won't say the right thing from the point of view, and there'll be times where we want him to fuck the players out of it, but he won't do it, or we want him to fuck a referee out of it and he won't do it. And I think what we got to do is we got to play the PR game pretty carefully here, no matter who the manager is, and specifically when you're talking about players. And as I say, I don't think I wouldn't be as down on the there's no kind of way back for Steven Gerrard now. I think there is. I think winning cures all that ails you. I think it cures all that ails you within the squad. But I think there needs to be some I do think that they need to come together and they need to have conversations. And I think that somebody needs to put their arm on Steven Gerrard's shoulder and say, listen, lad, if you're going to mention players by name in press conferences, even if you're asked about players, very middle of the road, vanilla, milk toast comments, please, because you're not doing any favors within the dressing room or outside there with the media, and you're creating a circus with it. And I just prefer if we didn't have a circus, please. That would be good, and let us get on with what we're doing on the training field. So that would be my advice. But as I say, I know about as much as you guys know from that point of view. Another one.
Hi guys, great podcast. I just have a question. How stubborn do you think Gerrard is? And there's a number of questions. The centre back's decision, Coutinho versus Buendia, basically the shape of the side. How long do you think that he would stick with something just because it's his decision and he wants to make it work? Even if we go through loss after loss or bad game after bad game in terms of the performance, how long do you think Gerrard would stick with it because he's doing it his way?
Hard one to answer. I suppose what I would do with that is, and the first thing that came to my mind is that there was managers who maybe took on a job. I'm not going to say that they weren't ready for it, but they went to a club maybe that didn't suit them. And what always comes to mind is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a very free-flowing team for Molde, and it just suited him. And yes, maybe the league suited him, and he got some great results. And then he went to United, and people criticized him for being stubborn and playing the same players, and for not being adaptable. You also go back, and I know Man United is a very, very different beast from the point of view of that they just haven't found it since Alex Ferguson left. But you look back at them as well. David Moyes went to Manchester United. He was criticised. He was criticised for trying to find the way he wanted to play. They bought Fellaini. They played him up top. People didn't like that, and then they got lots of other managers in. They got in like big name managers that we'd love to have at our club, but may not work out either. The likes of Louis van Gaal, the likes of Jose Mourinho, the likes of, you go down through them, and even Ten Hag. Ten Hag is having questions asked to him now, and the the club aren't doing him any favors by, bowing to fan pressures. If he wants Arnautovic in, you get him Arnautovic, and then, at the end of the day, he either sinks or he swims. They're having a bit of troubles themselves. So this isn't an answer solely based on Manchester United. But what I'm trying to get at here is that I think every manager is going to want to back their system. Rightly or wrongly, there's going to be very few managers that are going to continually to flip and to change, because I think it's very difficult to implement stuff week in, week out, different setups, and maybe that's something that football needs to adopt, because you can do it in international football, turgid and boring enough as it is, but maybe sometimes you need to bring that into the club game from time to time to arrest maybe free falls and stuff like that. And we couldn't do that last year, losing 5 on the bounce and then going on to win 1 or 2, and we were a very patchy team. So to answer your question, I don't know how long he's gonna try it. I don't know. He's been doing it now for 9 months, and he hasn't changed his. Yes, he's gone 2 up top. He's gone to whatever. He's changed his tactics slightly. But I think I don't know is the answer. But I think that it's inherent in managers that they want to back their system, and you see it all over the world that a manager has a system and they're very slow to change it. But sometimes you find that some of the best managers do change up their system. I'll bring in another person, Frank Rijkaard. Frank Rijkaard was at Barcelona. He, it was all conquering at Barcelona. Went to Galatasaray, couldn't get a tune out of that team. Now, granted, that Barcelona had a fantastic team at the time, but he knew a system of total football, brought in that Dutch kind of mentality into Barcelona, couldn't replicate it anywhere else. And he's been in and out of management pretty much with little success or fleeting success since then, So I think managers do get married to their systems. And I think, to be honest with you, if I was a manager, I'd like to think I wouldn't be, but it would be very difficult if you had success with something and you knew how it was supposed to work, that you wanted it to work out in the field and you knew what they were supposed to be doing. And sometimes I think like somebody like Gerrard kind of hark back as well to Glenn Hoddle. Glenn Hoddle couldn't understand why players couldn't do what he could do in the field. I would wager good money that Gerrard has struggles with that as well, that he can't understand why certain players can't do what he could do in the field. And once again, maybe it just goes to the point that maybe he got into management too quickly after playing. Maybe he hasn't had the time away. He went more or less straight into the Liverpool Academy and went on to Rangers, now on to Aston Villa. I don't know. That's blind speculation with regards to this, but you often do see it that ex-players will be married to a system and will try and make it work. And he won't be the first, last, or only manager to do that. And, as I say, now with Neil Critchley in there, hopefully we will see tweaks to the system and the setup as the weeks go on. We have 2 more left, so I'm going to play the next one.
Hi, Neil, Paddy. Love the show. It's Matt from Staines in Surrey. My question for you is, do you think Buendia and Coutinho can play the same side? I'm really sceptical that the Christmas tree works. Bit more intrigued by a 4-2-3-1, but probably leaves our fullbacks a bit exposed unless the 2 6s can really protect them. But would be keen to see it tried. What do you reckon?
Yes, is the answer to all of that, to the questions that you asked. Yes, I think the Coutinho and Buendia can play together. Maybe not in the role that we think they can play in the 2 inverted 10s. Maybe if we had Coutinho in the centre, Buendia far left, and Bailey wide right or something like that. I agree with you. In the 4-2-3-1 should at least be tried. Biggest problem with 4-2-3-1 is that our fullbacks need to stay back. A small bit. You mentioned about them being exposed. I don't think that they would be exposed, because at this moment in time, they're not really a massive factor in our defence, because they're consistently coming back against the ball when we're cutting a counter-attack. So this is where it kind of goes to me, where I kind of come back to what I said previously about, I think our defenders need to defend a small bit more, and I think our flair attacking players, which we've gone out and spent, I mentioned Coutinho, 17 million, massive wages. Buendia, 38 million. Bailey, another 28, 30 million or something. It's not like we've scrimped and saved on those attacking players. We're not allowing them do what they do best. We're not giving them space. And the reason we're not is because we're so hell-bent on getting our fullbacks open to the attacking third at every single opportunity. And it works for Liverpool. Yeah, it works for Liverpool. But just because it works for Liverpool doesn't mean it's going to work for Aston Villa. So for me, I think it's worth trying. I think it's worth being a small bit more judicious in defense and maybe being a bit more. I was going to say a bit more boring, but you can't get more boring than we were at the weekend. But I think that we need to be a bit more disciplined, I suppose, in our attack. And we're going to suffer having Buendia out wide, potentially suffer with having Buendia out wide left, although he does put a shift in, and we're going to potentially suffer with having Bailey out wide right, although this season he has tracked up and tracked down in this off season. So I don't see what we lose by trying out something like that. And we did go something similar to that in the second half. So maybe that's something that we see against Everton at the weekend. But will he play Buendia and Coutinho in the same team? He hasn't favoured it. I don't know whether his thoughts are the same as mine. So it's going to be really interesting. But I think the 4-2-3-1 is something that we should at least visit at the moment. But once again, going back to the last person's question, is there stubbornness there not to try that because it's not his system? And that's okay too. I have a voicemail in here that I have definitely not listened to. So I have no idea what way this one is going to go, but we're going to play it. It's just fresh in off the press 35 seconds ago. So I'm just going to play it here and hopefully there is no swear words in it because we're doing well so far.
Hi guys, Owen Bradley here.
It's going to be fine, so.
Caller.
Come on.
Now I just want to ask you guys your opinion on, we're sort of 28 games into Gerrard's reign. Should we be seeing some sort of style of play? Because I can't put my finger on it. Apart from maybe the first 5 games when we got a bounce when Gerrard came in, and possibly 1 or 2 games, maybe the Southampton game, first half against Leeds. That's the only style that I've seen so far. So should we now be seeing a nailed down style? And against Bournemouth, I couldn't see it. Thanks, guys. Big fan of the show.
Excellent. Thanks million, Owen. Yes, is the answer. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of stuff on social media. We see a lot of stuff everywhere going, what's the identity of this team? And we don't see it. We don't see the identity of the team. And I think a lot of that is down to a lot of that is down to I actually can't put my finger on it. I can't. I was initially going to say chopping and changing of team and personnel, but realistically speaking, we can name 2 of our 3 midfielders every single week. We can name 2 of our 3 forward players every single week, and we can name 3 of our 4 back line every single week. And we probably will, after the second or third game of the season, we should be able to name 4 of our back line, probably our 3 midfielders, and maybe the only changes happen up top. So from a personnel point of view, we should be seeing a small bit more. We should be seeing a small bit more discipline, but identity. But Steven Gerrard wanted us to be a tighted back and a possession-based team, and we've not been either of those 2 teams, either of those things for large parts of his reign so far. We did have lots of possession against Bournemouth, but what did we do with it? I keep on going back to litigate that game, and I don't want to, and I'm not going to again. But I think you're right, Owen. I think that's what we're going to need to look for. That's what we're going to need to see. And in the team sheet tantrum, that's what we're going to be talking about. Yes, the personnel are going to be there, but what do we want to see from the team? And what kind of tweaks and changes from the play style are we going to see, or do we need to see? And I think that's going to be the word on everybody's lips over the next week or so. Is, did we see it? What did we see? Did it work? And if it didn't work, why didn't it work? Because we're at the stage now whereby we're coming into some very difficult games, and we thought we'd have 3 points on the board. I think every Villa fan did, and we don't. So how do we adapt? Adaptability is something that Steven Gerrard has talked about an awful lot. How do we adapt to this situation? And then how do we make sure that those adaptations then make us a better team and make us a more cohesive unit? And the jury's out on whether that has happened during the last 28 games at all. So we can only see with time on that one. That's going to do it for our voicemail, Chad. I don't know. I think that was a pretty good showing for the first voicemail show. I really do. Thank you so much to everybody who called in. I was reluctant to say your names just in case people didn't want me to. In future, I will call out people's names on the podcast. I just wanted to kind of get my feet under the table with this one first. Just a reminder for everybody, if you are leaving a voicemail, please don't leave your email address just because I will start to share up on screen the voice recordings, and we can play them, and then people will be able to see your names. If you're okay with the names being shown up there, that's cool. We can pop your name up, and we can show them. It's just I'm very conscious of having anybody's email address there, so do not put in your email address, whatever you do, and then next time we'll be able to show up those people who have called in. But thank you so much to the 9 people, I think, that left voicemails there already, and this has only been on the go since yesterday. You can find us on speakpipe.com. You'll be able to find it very, very easily. I just need to make sure that, it's www.speakpipe, as in speak, SPEAKPIPE.com / for the love of Paul McGrath pod. So that's where you'll be able to find us, and you'll be able to leave us a voicemail and tell us anything that you wish. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening. As always, onwards towards Everton. We'll be back with a preview show tomorrow with Paddy, and then we'll be back with team sheet tantrums and post-match reviews of the game on Saturday. And as I say, everybody, thanks so much for this. Stay safe, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.